Okay, let's get into it. So we have this nice black, not black, dark background, and I am going to drag from my film strip here in the bottom. I'm going to drag this image of this fish and just apply it as a layer on top of my background layer. I immediately am like, wouldn't it be cool if this fish could be sort of floating in the sky, not in the water, and create this photographic composition that is more fantasy related? And one way where we could sort of remove this black area here so that we can place our fish in the sky is we could select the subject, we could start removing the background manually. But when you have a super dark background or a super light background like this, you don't need to do that to merge this photo with the one on the bottom. And so we're going to use blend modes. So we are going to start with the two, I guess, most basic blend modes, which are darken and lighten right here. What happens if I put darken? You will see that the bright pixels on my original photo have become almost transparent, making the fish completely blended with the background, but leaving the black background of the fish intact, which is what we don't want. And what is lighten? Completely the opposite. And so, as you can see, it's extremely easy to achieve edits like that with blend modes when you have certain conditions. So just to keep it easier to understand, I guess, I'm just going to paste this in the chat. The lighten blend mode keeps the lighter colors, whereas the darken blend mode keeps the darker colors. And you will see that many of the other blend modes are versions of either the darken or the lighten blend mode. So for example, screen is very similar to lighten. So it's getting rid of the dark pixels and just leaving the brighter pixels. And screen is a little bit more strong than lighten. If I go to lighten, you'll see that some of the detail of my fish starts disappearing and blending fully with the background. But if I go to screen, now I can see more of my fish appearing. One trick, if you want to see what all of the blend modes do in real time without having to click here, the menu, and go to one and then the other one. This is kind of like a little bit annoying. All you have to do is go to the blend mode menu, click normal or whichever you want. And after doing that, with the arrows on your keyboard, top and down, you can go through each of the blend modes. And you will find yourself experimenting a lot. So here we have dodge, which is another version of lighten, but it's also more intense because our fish is a lot more brighter. So if I keep going down, you'll start noticing all of these different blend modes and how they affect the relationship between my main image and my background image. Difference is a very important blending mode that we are going to, that creates sort of an inversion of colors in between your images. Again, if you want to know the details of how each one of these operate, go to the link I provided there to the user guide so that you can know exactly what they do. Let's go back to screen, which is one version of the lighten blend mode. And if I select my layer and start moving it around, you'll notice that it's still transparent. And this is because there are some pixels that just don't get to be able to dissolve into the background. And one way to fix this, if you want your, let's say, whatever you want to place in front of this dark background to just be fully present with no transparency, we can just create a new layer in between, go over to our brush tool up here, and select the color with this tool right here, the dropper, and select kind of like this, the night sky that we have in the background, right? And so what we can do now, we're going to start painting behind our fish to bring it fully in its full tonality to the front of our image. But we're going to try to just be really, we don't want to cover the details here, the borders as much, because I like to see some of that transparency. It helps the image to blend better with the background. Um, of course, you can also play around with the opacity of the fish, or in this case, the layer we are blending with the bottom layer to make it appear more or less. And if I reduce fully, you will see that my layer in between where I'm painting is visible. Earlier, we were talking about textures. So, and in the site, in the link that I provided in the chat, you will be able to see that link and be able to download a bunch of the textures we're using today. So let's try to, what happens if we bring this image and we place it in front of all of our other layers? So our base layer is in a normal blending layer. The second layer is still normal. The third one is on screen. And this one is in normal. Because it's normal, we are not blending any pixels. When we have opacity at 100%, we're not blending any pixels with the images that are below. What if we play around with blend modes? Let's see what happens. Okay, so let's go to screen. And you'll see that the darker areas of this layer on top disappear, leaving only sort of like this like the lens flare effect. And I can reduce the opacity of it. And that is adding, you know, it's adding a lot of texture on top of my photo. So let's keep going. Let's explore what the other ones do. So if I go to multiply, you'll see that my photo, multiply is a version. It's another version of the darken blend mode. So it'll make everything that's bright in my image, it'll make it dark. Let's open up this image right here. And why don't we apply the principle we were talking about earlier, which is like adding this sort of texture to the photo using blend mode. So here we have this sort of blue toned film grain image, which is available in the link that I provided. And we can, so probably lighten. Again, it's going to make the darker areas of this layer blend with the brighter tones of my layer below. And just by doing that, I'm adding a really nice texture to otherwise this photo that looks strongly like a digital photo. So now it starts to get this blue tonality. As if I zoom in, you'll start noticing the details of the grain that is available on that first layer. If you'd like to, for example, use this but avoid the blue tonalities, then very simple, you can just add a color EQ, or yes, I guess color EQ would make more sense. Apply a clipping mask So this icon right here, whenever you add an adjustment layer, if you click on this rhomboid, whatever you do in this adjustment layer will only be applied to the layer that's right below it. So if I didn't have this and I start changing my, let's say, vibrance or exposure, if I reduce the vibrance fully to the left, I'm gonna get super, super close to a black and white photo. But if I clip this to my layer here on the bottom, now I've sort of made reduced, I mean, I've desaturated the layer on the bottom, and now I can preserve this film-like look in my photo. Another thing that's really cool with blend modes, and that I think I touched a little upon earlier, is that you can, if you have a transparent PNG, so for example, this fish here. Oh, and remember, if you're dragging from your film strip on Ultimate, if you're dragging images and you want them as layers, drag your photo and bring it to your layer panel. If you bring it straight into your image, it will basically ask you to um, start a new edit project. So I'm bringing my PNG of a fish, and as you can see, there's no background in it. And I'm going to hit commit. Let's go through the blend modes. The awesome thing about, for example, burn, color, multiply is that it's darkening the my image, and now it looks like this fish is part of this wall. So that's something else that you can do with blend modes that is extremely easy to do. So I guess multiply looks really good on this one. I guess burn and dodge look, no, burn looks really, really good too. So only with blend modes, we've added this film, style, grain, and we started adding elements to the photo that are able to blend with the background really well. Let's take this a step further, and you might find this useful if you're, let's say, I don't know, creating, um, if you want to apply a logo or a text in, let's say, a wooden crate or wherever you want with texture. Um, we have this image of these crates, and if I go to the text tool and type, let's say, just logo, and maybe let's try to get something more like a stronger look. What is this? Well, let's just go with this for now. Right, so I could just bring my logo layer onto my crate, but it doesn't look like it's part of the crate, right? I mean, it's easy to see why not. It just doesn't look right. I'm going to click on commit, and I'm going to change the color of the text too. Make it a little bit more special. What color can we use? Maybe a red. Yeah, that's cool. The awesome thing of blend modes is that they not only work with photos, photo files like PNGs or JPEGs, it can also work with texts. So if we go to screen, it'll make our logo light. But if we go to overlay, for example, now we're starting to see how the text layer is combining with my wooden crate in ways that look more realistic. So soft light is a good one on here. Maybe I'll try if I do multiply and then maybe so that we can all see better, and I'll just make this a little, make it darker. Let's see. That's cool. So we're using the overlay, which is a version of another version of darken. And now if I move my logo through the image, you will see that it's blending fully with whatever is below it. If I go to the white area, I see absolutely nothing. But if I place it on top of the crate, I can see it blended with the texture behind it. The next thing that we would need to do here is sort of change the perspective a little bit of this logo so that it has this dimensionality to it. And to do that, all we need to do is just go to the perspective correction in the geometry tab of our filter menu. So if I have my layer selected and then I go to perspective correction, okay, yeah, so this is going to happen. That's okay. So the ACDSee is telling me the requested operation cannot be performed on a text layer. Do you want to rasterize the selected layer? Yes. So it transformed our text layer into um, an image. And so make sure that you have the color and the text of whatever you want placed already. And now we're just going to intuitively start trying to match by moving these yellow pointers here, trying to match the lines of the crate. So maybe like this. Bring this one on the bottom a little bit. Actually, that is good. There, that looks good to me. Okay, so then we'll hit done. And now I'm able to move my logo down. Now, because we've transformed our text layer into an image layer, you will see that when I applied that perspective transformation, um, the blend mode, like I basically compressed or reduced the size of the original image. And so now I have these white pixels around it. And because I have the blend mode activated, it's kind of messing with the rest of the image. So let's place the logo back onto our wooden crate and fix that. So I'm going to click on commit. And now all you need to do to get rid of these the problem we have here, you can choose to delete, right? And so if you look closely into the layer, you will see that there is transparency in most of the layer, but not fully. And so you can just go ahead and delete whatever is around your text, but don't go over the text. Don't delete your text. And if you look closely now to my logo layer, you will see that it is fully transparent now. So we have this pretty awesome photo that maybe doesn't need a lot more editing. However, if we want to, take things one step ahead, I strongly recommend to, again, download the link I provided with the textures and bring it on top of your photos and just start, scrolling down to see what effects you can create. And already it's starting to look so special, so cool. Yes. Okay. So we talked about difference, and the cool thing about difference is that instead of um, making your either darker parts of your photo lighter or your lighter parts of your photo darker, it's combining whatever is happening with both colors of your image to achieve colorized effects just like this. If I move my top layer left and right, you will see how the blend mode is easily being sort of moved around our bottom layer. We have this photo of this person, of this photographer. Um, it's a really nice photo, but we can uh, make it a lot cooler, honestly. And so if we bring a film grain layer to the top of my other layer and go over the screen, the effect is just really, really cool without having to have done more than 2 clicks. Multiply will darken our image. Dodge, similar to screen, but a bit more intense, as you can see. Burn is basically just leaving, it's darkening everything that is close to black, but making transparent everything that's white. Overlay creates a super contrasty version of my image. So I think for this one, I'll probably choose either screen or lighten. Screen, I'll stay with lighten because it does preserve a bit more of the contrast on our image. But of course, I can play around with the opacity to bring it forward or less. What if I bring in some lens flare? And yeah, so now we're starting to enter sort of a different terrain. However, now this photo could be totally used in, let's say, a banner. So you can transform sort of like a normal photo into something more creative, more unique. Soft light is really cool. It's very subtle. So that's without it, and that's with it. So it's adding some lens flare to my image. And if you want to go even crazier, what about this one? So in this case, what we need is sort of the opposite of what we've been doing so far. And I'm just going to deactivate my lens flare here. What we've done so far is we've taken mostly darker image and blending the dark colors of that image with the image beneath, right? So the whites we're seeing clearly, but the blacks have become transparent. But this image is mostly white or closer to white. So instead of going lighten and see any difference, like it's you don't see almost any difference. But if I go to darken, now you will start seeing that the blue textures that are appearing um, start appearing with my photo. So multiply is a stronger version of darken. Overlay is somewhere in between. And overlay, it starts looking really awesome. It looks like a it looks like a postcard. It changed our image completely. It went to just a very casual, amazing sunset into this sort of, you can put like a title here, like you know, maybe this is too obvious, but you can use your own photos to start creating things that are definitely unique just by using blend modes. I mean, you could be like, how am I ever going to design something like this? You could see this somewhere and you'd be like, oh, that's a complicated edit. It is not. We just applied blend modes. I could even apply a blend mode to this text again. For example, difference, which is creating this yellowy um, feel to it. Exclusion, which is also similar to difference. Let's leave it like that. And again, if I start dragging it around through my image, can you see when I'm moving the photo left and right, the text left and right? It's just completely changing everything in my photo. Given that I've become a father recently, maybe if you guys don't have any more questions, we can do one more edit where I'm gonna try just by using blend modes, the basic blend modes that we've seen, to make it seem like this baby is sitting, a giant baby, so to speak. And it's cool because this reflection here on the bottom of the original photo will hopefully be able to be uh, appear here at the bottom of the water. So here's my giant baby. This is not my baby. Just so you know, it's just an internet baby. Dan, so you can go in Google Images, you can just type film grain texture, film texture, grain texture, lens flare texture. I know there must be a bunch of images out there that you can use and just drag and drop them into Ultimate and just start playing around with them. But also, like I said in the beginning of the workshop, if you go to the event link there, you'll be able to download the textures that I've been using on this workshop. So the ones that we've seen, all of those are going to be able to download. Okay, so how do I make this baby blend with the background, make it seem like baby is a giant baby sitting next to a lake without needing to start manually deleting the background and preserving this reflection here? All I need to do is just get rid of the dark or black pixels on the top layer. And the way to do that is to use lighten blend modes. So it could be lighten, it could be screen, and let's just scroll quickly to see which one will make my baby appear most naturally in the photo. I have a feeling it's gonna be lighten in the end. Subtract, I mean, look at that. Things start getting a little crazy. So I'm probably, and this is something that you will realize is that most of the blend modes that you'll end up using in the beginning are either light, darken, multiply, and overlay, which are blend modes that make your image darker, or screen, lighten, soft light, which will make your image brighter. Okay, so let's see. We got lighten, we got screen. Okay, let's just use lighten. I still see a lot of transparency, right? So let's try to make do what we did in the first example we saw today. So to make this a little bit easier, I'm definitely going to darken my background a little bit. This will, so you'll notice that I added an exposure layer on top of my background, and I'm reducing the exposure just so that the blend mode is able to notice a bigger difference between the brighter pixels and the darker pixels of both of the layers that I'm working with. So now I can see my baby a lot better than before. Maybe there. And now, to get rid of the transparency here, I'm going to quickly select the brush tool. And with the eyedropper, I'm going to select my night sky on a dark part of the sky. And I'm just going to start painting underneath the baby. There. So now I've matched the layer that I painted with baby. And now it kind of does look like there's a baby sitting there. Maybe I could play around with adjustment layers of exposure to make it blend a little bit better. And I think in this case, it would be very useful to either add a filter or a color LUT in the end. So why don't we try around with a color LUT? You have beige color LUT, dusk, elegance. Film is pretty cool. I think I just need to reduce the brightness of baby here. Yeah, like the contrast. That's starting to look a bit better. So there you go. I mean, many ways that you can experiment with blend modes. I would say the most useful for me and for photographers is adding, instead of creating composite images like this, is adding, like how we saw in the previous example, adding textures. And my recommendation is to start there because, blend modes is a very, very, very deep subject, but you can get really, really great results just by applying the basics